Two 9-year-old twin girls were abandoned by their mother and forced to carry firewood under the scorching sun to survive. But when a young billionaire spotted the ring that one of them was wearing, he was shocked and began to cry desperately. The blazing sun mercilessly punished the dusty road, creating shimmering waves of heat that distorted the distant landscape. In this arid, desolate setting, two small figures stood out, their tiny silhouettes struggling under the weight of the load they carried. Emma and Olivia, 9-year-old twins, trudged along the edge of the road, each holding a stack of firewood that looked disproportionately large for their slender bodies. The girls were identical in appearance, with disheveled brown hair clinging to their sweaty foreheads and green eyes that shone with a mixture of determination and exhaustion. Their dresses, once colorful, were now faded and patched, silent witnesses to a life of hardship. Despite the stifling heat and the weight of their load, they pressed on step after step, on what seemed like an endless journey. Emma, the twin leading the way, adjusted her pile of firewood, grimacing when a particularly sharp branch poked her thin shoulder. "Liv," she called over her shoulder, her voice rough from thirst. "Are you okay?" Olivia, a few steps behind, nodded wearily. "Yes," she answered, though her tone betrayed her exhaustion. "How much farther until we get home?" Emma frowned, her eyes scanning the wavering horizon. "Not much," she lied, trying to sound confident for her sister's sake. In truth, she had no idea how much longer they would have to walk. They had ventured farther than usual in search of firewood, scarcity forcing them to look in increasingly distant areas. As the twins continued their arduous journey, a distant rumble began to echo down the empty road. The sound grew gradually, transforming into the unmistakable roar of a powerful engine. Soon, a luxury car appeared on the horizon, its metallic paint gleaming under the relentless sun. Behind the wheel was Michael, a man in his early 40s, dressed in a flawless suit that contrasted sharply with the desolate surroundings. His eyes, shielded by expensive sunglasses, drifted absently over the monotonous landscape until something unusual caught his attention. Two small figures by the side of the road, carrying what appeared to be firewood. Michael frowned, instinctively slowing down. As he drew closer, the details of the girls became clearer. Their worn clothes, their thin bodies, the visible weight of the burden they were hauling. Without a second thought, Michael pulled over. The smooth purr of the luxury engine ceased, leaving only the buzzing heat and the girls' labored breathing. He stepped out of the vehicle, the hot air hitting him like a wall. "Hello," he called softly, not wanting to startle the girls. "Do you need help?" Emma and Olivia stopped, eyeing the well-dressed stranger with a mixture of curiosity and caution. There was a moment of tense silence before Emma, always the braver of the two, replied, "We're fine, sir. Just going back home." Michael took a step forward, his eyebrows knitted with concern. "It's way too hot for you to be carrying all that weight. Can I offer you a ride?" The girls exchanged looks, a silent conversation passing between them. Then something caught Michael's eye, a metallic gleam on Emma's finger. His heart stopped for a moment as he recognized the familiar design. It was a ring he knew all too well. Michael felt tears welling up in his eyes, a wave of emotion hitting him with overwhelming force. He struggled to maintain his composure, but couldn't stop a few tears from silently rolling down his cheeks. The twins noticed the sudden change in the stranger's demeanor. The caution in their eyes gave way to confusion and concern. "Sir?" Olivia asked timidly. "Are you okay?" Michael blinked rapidly, trying to clear the tears. Yes," he replied, his voice choked. That ring. Where did you get it?" He pointed to Emma's hand. Emma looked down at the ring on her finger, a precious object she had always worn, but whose origin she didn't really know. "I've always had it," she answered hesitantly. "Our mother gave it to me." Michael's heart pounded. He crouched down, getting on the girl's level. I gave a ring just like that to someone very special many years ago," he explained softly. The twins glanced at each other again, confusion evident in their faces. Michael realized he was scaring them and decided to change the subject. "You two must be hungry after carrying all that wood," he said, forcing a smile. "How about we go to that diner up ahead? I'll buy you something to eat." The mention of food made the twins' stomachs rumble audibly. They hesitated for a moment, years of caution battling with the promise of a meal. Finally, hunger won. "Okay," Emma agreed, speaking for both of them. Michael helped the girls load their firewood into the trunk of his car, noting how reluctant they were to be separated from their precious cargo. The trio then headed to a small roadside diner, a concrete oasis in the middle of the dusty terrain. Inside the diner, the air conditioning provided a welcome respite from the oppressive heat. Michael watched the twins devour burgers and fries, their eyes shining with gratitude at every bite. While they ate, he gently encouraged them to talk, listening intently to their stories. Emma and Olivia spoke of their life, how they lived with an elderly lady who had taken them in, how they helped gather firewood and do other odd jobs to survive. They spoke of their mother, who had disappeared months ago, leaving them only with the ring and vague memories. With every word, Michael's heart grew heavier. The suspicions that had started to form in his mind since he saw the ring seemed increasingly likely. These girls, so brave and resilient despite their age, could they be? He barely dared to complete the thought. When the twins finished eating, Michael drove them back to the modest house they called home. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He helped them unload the firewood in front of the house. "Thank you, sir," Emma said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You were really kind." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "You're welcome," he replied softly. "Listen, I'd like to help more. Can I come back to visit you?" The girls exchanged uncertain looks before Olivia answered, "I think so. Mrs. Marta wouldn't mind." "Great," Michael said, trying to contain the emotion in his voice. "I promise I'll come back. Take care, okay?" As the twins waved and went inside, Michael returned to his car, his heart heavy with a mixture of emotions: hope, fear, guilt, love. He knew he couldn't just move on now. He needed to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As he drove back to the city, the images of the two girls lingered in his mind, their shy smiles, their bright eyes, the familiar ring on Emma's finger. Michael made a silent promise to himself and to the girls. He would return. He would discover the truth, and above all, he would do whatever it took to help them. The sun finally sank below the horizon, plunging the landscape into deepening shadows. But for Michael, Emma, and Olivia, that chance encounter on the dusty road had lit a spark of hope, a light that, though faint and uncertain, promised to illuminate a path toward a future none of them could have imagined earlier that scorching afternoon. Michael's car wound along the twisting road leading to the Thornton mansion, its wheels grinding the gravel beneath its weight. Night had fallen, draping the landscape in darkness, but Michael's mind was far from peaceful. The encounter with the twins on that dusty road hours before continued to haunt him. The images of the girls and the familiar ring on Emma's finger replaying incessantly in his mind. When he finally parked in front of the imposing mansion, Michael remained seated for a few moments, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He closed his eyes, trying to pull himself together, but the memory of Emma's face, so like Sarah's, hit him like a punch to the gut. Sarah. The name echoed in his mind, bringing with it a flood of memories he had tried to bury for years, 10 years earlier. The Thornton mansion's garden was in full bloom, the air perfumed with the scent of roses and jasmine. Michael, then 30, strolled hand in hand with Sarah, a 25-year-old woman with wavy brown hair and bright green eyes. They laughed, carefree and in love, oblivious to the world around them. "Michael," Sarah said, stopping under a centuries-old oak tree. "I love you, you know that, don't you?" Michael smiled, pulling her closer. "I love you too, Sarah. More than words can say." They kissed, the world seeming to disappear around them. When they pulled apart, Michael took a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sarah," he said, kneeling down, "will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a small diamond. Sarah gasped, tears of joy shining in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "1,000 times yes." Michael slid the ring onto her finger, sealing his promise with another passionate kiss. "Present." Michael shook his head, trying to dispel the memory. The ring. The very same ring now adorning Emma's finger. How was this possible? With a heavy sigh, he finally got out of the car and entered the mansion. The interior was quiet and dark, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp in the foyer. Michael climbed the stairs to his office, his mind a whirlpool of thoughts and emotions. Once inside the sanctuary of his office, Michael collapsed into his leather armchair, burying his face in his hands. The memories continued to assault him, unrelenting in their intensity. 8 years ago. "How you can't be serious, Michael?" The voice of Elizabeth Thornton, Michael's mother, echoed through the mansion's corridors. "Marrying the housekeeper? Have you lost your mind?" Michael faced his mother, anger sparking in his eyes. "I love Sarah, Mother, and I'm going to marry her whether you approve or not." Elizabeth laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Love? Don't be naive, Michael. She's only after your money, your status. Can't you see you're being manipulated?" "Enough!" Michael shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. "Sarah is not like that. She loves me for who I am, not for what I have." "Fine," Elizabeth said, her voice dangerously calm. "If that's how you feel, do as you wish. But don't say I didn't warn you when she walks away with half your fortune." Michael stormed out of the room, leaving his mother behind. He found Sarah in the garden, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. "Sarah," he said softly, taking her in his arms, "don't listen to her. We'll be together no matter what happens." Sarah nodded against his chest, but Michael couldn't help noticing the shadow of doubt in her eyes. "Present." Michael abruptly stood up from his chair and walked to the window. The full moon hung in the sky, bathing the garden in silvery light. The same garden where he had made so many promises to Sarah, promises that now seemed distant and hollow. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't ignore what he had seen today, the similarities between the twins and Sarah, the ring on Emma's finger. He needed answers, and he knew exactly how to get them. With renewed determination, Michael picked up his phone and dialed a number he rarely used. "Hawthorne Private Investigations," a deep voice answered. "This is Michael Thornton," he said firmly. "I need your services to locate someone." After giving the necessary details and agreeing to the terms, Michael hung up, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. He wouldn't tell Elizabeth about this, at least not yet. She had never approved of Sarah, and Michael feared she might interfere in the search. The following hours passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. Michael barely slept, his mind filled with possible scenarios, each more overwhelming than the last. When morning finally broke, he was already up, exhausted but resolute. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The investigators worked tirelessly, following every lead, no matter how small. Michael received regular updates, each bringing a mixture of hope and dread. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, came the news Michael had both hoped for and feared. The investigators had uncovered records of Sarah's temporary jobs in several towns over the years. It was the first concrete sign of her whereabouts since her disappearance. Without hesitation, Michael decided to follow these leads in person. He informed his mother he would be traveling on business indefinitely, ignoring the suspicious look she gave him. His first stop was a small industrial town several hours away. Sarah had worked in a textile factory for a few months, shortly after her disappearance. Michael walked through the dusty corridors of the factory, now closed, imagining Sarah there, working long hours under harsh conditions. The next place on the list was a slightly larger suburban community, where Sarah had waitressed at a local cafe. The establishment still existed, though under new management. Michael sat at a corner table, ordering a coffee he barely touched, his eyes scanning the place and picturing Sarah waiting tables, possibly with 2 little girls in tow. It was in the 3rd town that Michael finally found something more substantial. It was a coastal town where Sarah had worked at a small seaside hotel for nearly a year. The hotel was still in operation, and that was where Michael met Maria. Maria was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She still worked at the hotel as a housekeeper, and her eyes lit up with recognition when Michael mentioned Sarah's name. "Sarah?" Maria repeated, a nostalgic smile tugging at her lips. "Of course I remember her. We worked together for quite some time. She and those 2 adorable little girls." Michael's heart quickened. "Girls?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Can you tell me more about them?" Maria nodded, inviting Michael to sit on a nearby bench. "They were twins," she began, "identical as 2 drops of water. Emma and Olivia, if I recall correctly. Sarah brought them to work almost every day. She had no one else to watch them, you know." Michael swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in his throat. What were they like?" "Oh, they were sweethearts," Maria smiled. "Quiet, well-behaved. They'd sit in a corner of the service area, drawing or playing with some old dolls we kept around. Sarah did everything to keep them occupied while she worked." Maria paused, her smile faltering slightly. "But it wasn't easy, you know. Sarah was always so tired." You could see it in her eyes, how hard she tried to manage everything. Michael felt a pang of guilt. "What do you mean?" "Well, it's not easy raising 2 kids alone, especially while working jobs like that," Maria explained. "Sarah took extra shifts whenever she could. Sometimes she worked double shifts. All to afford food, clothes, just the basics for the girls." Maria looked off into the distance, lost in thought. "There were days when Sarah could barely stand from exhaustion, but she never complained, you know. She always had a smile for the girls, always found the strength to tell them a bedtime story, even after a grueling day of work." Michael closed his eyes, feeling a sharp ache in his chest. The image of Sarah, exhausted but determined, caring for her daughters, was almost unbearable. "What impressed me most," Maria continued, "was her determination to keep the girls together. There were tough times, you know, times when it might have been easier. Well, there are options for single mothers who can't raise their kids, but Sarah never considered that. To her, those girls were everything. She said she'd rather go hungry than be separated from them." Michael felt tears forming in his eyes. He wiped them away quickly, hoping Maria hadn't noticed. "Do you have any idea where she might have gone after this?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. Maria shook her head sadly. "Unfortunately not. One day she just didn't show up for work. She left a note thanking everyone, saying she had to move on. We never heard from her or the girls again." Michael thanked Maria for her time and her information, feeling emotionally drained. He walked along the beach for hours, letting the sound of the waves wash over him, trying to process everything he had learned. Sarah had struggled alone to raise her daughters, she had faced hardships he could barely imagine, all to keep her family together. And he had been absent all this time, living comfortably in his mansion, oblivious to their suffering. Guilt consumed him, mixed with a fierce determination. He would find Sarah and the girls no matter how long it took. And when he did, he would do everything he could to make up for the lost years, to heal the wounds his absence had caused. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Michael made a silent promise to the vast ocean before him. He would right his wrongs. He would be the father Emma and Olivia deserved, the partner Sarah needed. No matter the cost, no matter the obstacles, he would find them, and this time he wouldn't let them go. With that resolve burning in his chest, Michael returned to his hotel, determined to continue his search. The journey would be long and difficult, he knew, but now that he had glimpsed the truth, there was no turning back. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Michael felt he was heading in the right direction. Michael returned to the Thornton mansion at dusk, the sky streaked with shades of purple and orange. His car wound along the long gravel driveway, its wheels grinding loose stones under its weight. When he finally parked in front of the imposing structure he called home, Michael remained seated for several minutes, his hands still gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension. The discoveries of the past weeks weighed on him like a lead blanket. Maria's words echoed incessantly in his mind, painting vivid images of Sarah struggling to raise her daughters, his daughters alone, facing hardships he could barely fathom. With a deep sigh, Michael finally exited the car. The night air was cool, carrying the perfume of roses from the garden. In normal times, this aroma would have soothed him, brought back happy memories. Now it only intensified his anguish, reminding him of the moments he'd shared with Sarah in this very garden, so many years ago. Entering the mansion, Michael ignored the lights of the main hall and went straight to his room. He wasn't in the mood to see his mother or any of the staff. At that moment, he needed solitude to process all he had discovered. Once in his room, Michael headed straight for the closet. In the back, hidden behind piles of clothes he hadn't worn in ages, was an intricately carved wooden box. He picked it up carefully, as if handling a precious relic, and carried it over to the bed. Sitting on the edge of the mattress, Michael opened the box slowly. The smell of old paper and faded perfume escaped, bringing with it a wave of memories. Inside, meticulously preserved, were the tangible remnants of his relationship with Sarah. Letters, photos, small gifts they had exchanged. With trembling hands, Michael picked up the first item, a photo album. As he opened it, he was immediately greeted by Sarah's radiant smile. The photo had been taken during a picnic, the summer sun illuminating her brown hair, her green eyes shining with happiness. Michael traced the outline of her face with a finger, feeling a sharp ache in his chest. "Oh, Sarah," he murmured to the silence of the room. "How did we end up here?" Turning the album's pages, Michael was overwhelmed by memories. There were pictures of them at the beach, laughing as the waves lapped at their feet. Photos of romantic dinners, Sarah wearing the red dress he loved so much. Photos of simple, everyday moments, Sarah reading a book in the garden, making breakfast in the mansion's kitchen, sleeping peacefully on the sofa in the library. Each image felt like a stab to Michael's heart, reminding him of the happiness they'd shared and the terrible loss that followed. But now, looking at these photos with fresh eyes, he noticed details he'd missed before. The glow in Sarah's eyes when she looked at him, the way her smile lit up her entire face. How could he have doubted, even for a moment, the sincerity of her love? Setting the album aside, Michael picked up a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. He carefully undid the knot and took the first letter. Sarah's elegant handwriting filled the page, her words overflowing with love and hope for their future. "My dear Michael," he read quietly, "every day away from you feels like an eternity. But I know our love is strong enough to overcome any obstacle. I dream of the day we can be together without reservations, without judgment. Until then, I carry your love with me like a talisman against the loneliness." Michael felt tears forming in his eyes. How could he have let his mother's venomous words make him doubt this love? How could he have allowed Sarah to leave without fighting for her with all his might? He spent the following hours immersed in memories, rereading every letter, examining every photo, poring over every keepsake for clues he might have missed. Was there something in these items that could hint at where Sarah had gone? Some mention of a special place, a dream she might have tried to fulfill? As the night wore on, Michael considered sharing his findings with Elizabeth. After all, his mother had resources and connections that could help in the search. But as soon as the thought crossed his mind, he dismissed it. No, Elizabeth had never approved of Sarah. She had seen only an ambitious housekeeper, where Michael had seen a soulmate. Telling her now would only complicate matters. Besides, part of him feared his mother's reaction. What if she tried to stop him from finding Sarah and the girls? What if she used her influence to hinder the search? No, it was better to keep the investigation secret, at least for now. The hours slipped by and the sky outside the window began to lighten with the first rays of dawn. Michael hadn't slept, his mind a swirling mass of memories, regrets, and plans for the future. Seated in his favorite armchair, his eyes red with fatigue but shining with renewed determination, Michael started to map out his next steps. He needed to go back to the towns where Sarah had worked. Dig deeper. Perhaps there were school records for the girls, or medical records that could provide clues about their current whereabouts. He also needed to be more cautious in his searches. If Sarah was hiding, as it seemed, she was likely on the lookout for any sign that someone was looking for her. Michael would have to be discreet, use aliases, maybe even disguises. As the sun fully rose, bathing the room in golden light, Michael made a silent promise. He would find Sarah and his daughters, no matter how long it took. And when he found them, he would do everything in his power to correct the mistakes of the past, to be the man and father they deserved. With that firm resolve in his heart, Michael finally allowed himself to lie down, exhausted but determined. The road ahead would be difficult, he knew, but for the first time in years, he felt he was on the right path. And with that certainty, he finally fell into a restless sleep, dreaming of familiar faces and the promise of a future yet to unfold. Morning had barely broken on the horizon when Michael's phone rang, jolting him from a fitful sleep. He groped for it on the nightstand, his eyes still heavy with exhaustion, and answered in a hoarse voice. "Mr. Thornton," came the energetic voice of Daniel, the lead investigator. "We have news. A solid lead on Sarah's whereabouts." Michael sat up abruptly, all traces of sleep vanishing in an instant. "What? Where?" "A small town called Millbrook, about 186 miles north. We have a record of Sarah working at a local bookstore around 3 years ago." Michael's heart raced. 3 years ago. This was the most recent lead they'd found so far. "I'm on my way," he said, already getting up and searching for clothes. "Send me the details." After a quick shower and a rushed coffee, Michael was on the road. The scenery blurred past as he drove, his mind filled with possibilities. Could he finally find Sarah? And the girls, Emma and Olivia? Would they be with her? Millbrook was a picturesque town with tree-lined streets and brick houses. Michael parked on Main Street, immediately spotting the small bookstore mentioned by the investigator. The bell above the door tinkled as he entered. The air smelled of old books and fresh coffee. An elderly lady looked up from behind the counter, smiling kindly. "How can I help you, dear?" Michael hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Actually, I'm looking for someone who worked here a few years back. Sarah Lawson." The lady's smile faltered briefly. "Sarah? Oh yes, she worked here for a while. Such a lovely young woman, always so kind to the customers. Would you happen to know where she went after this?" The lady frowned in thought. "I'm not sure. She left so suddenly. Mentioned something about seeking medical treatment in a bigger town, but she didn't give details." Michael felt his heart tighten. Medical treatment. Was Sarah ill? Thanking the lady, he left the bookstore, feeling both hopeful and frustrated. He was so close, yet the trail seemed to have gone cold again. Determined not to give up, Michael spent the rest of the day combing through Millbrook, talking to shopkeepers, waitresses, anyone who might have known Sarah. Most people remembered her vaguely. A young single mother, always working hard, always accompanied by 2 little girls. Late in the afternoon, as discouragement began to set in, Michael had his breakthrough. Sitting in a local cafe, he overheard 2 older ladies chatting at the next table. "Do you remember that nurse, Margaret, the one who retired last year?" "Oh, yes. She always had the best hospital stories." Michael leaned closer, his interest piqued. "Excuse me," he said. "I couldn't help overhearing. You mentioned a nurse. I'm looking for information about someone who might have sought medical treatment here a few years ago." The ladies looked at him curiously. "Well," one said, "if anyone can help you, it's Margaret." She worked at St. Mary's Hospital for over 40 years. She knows all the interesting cases. With the directions provided, Michael soon found himself knocking on the door of a cozy house on the outskirts of town. A middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes answered, "Margaret Thompson?" "Yes, that's me." "How can I help you?" Michael hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I'm looking for a woman who might have come through St. Mary's Hospital a few years back. Sarah Lawson. She had 2 little daughters." Margaret's eyes lit up with recognition. "Sarah? Oh yes, I remember her. Such a sad case." Michael felt his heart pound. "Can you tell me what happened?" Margaret invited him in, indicating a comfortable chair in the living room. As she sat, she seemed to be arranging her thoughts. Sarah arrived at the hospital with her 2 girls. They were so young then, no more than 5 or 6. Sarah was very sick, some sort of heart condition, if I'm not mistaken. She needed specialized treatment. Michael leaned forward, absorbing every word. "And what happened?" Margaret sighed. "Unfortunately, St. Mary's is a small hospital. We didn't have the resources to treat Sarah's condition properly. She needed to be transferred to a larger, more specialized center. Do you know where she went?" "I'm not absolutely sure, but I recall hearing about Riverview Central Hospital. It's a large medical center, about 124 miles from here. If Sarah needed specialized care, that's probably where she went." Michael felt a rush of hope flood through him. This was the most concrete lead he'd had in years. "Margaret, you have no idea what this means to me. Thank you." The former nurse studied him for a moment, an understanding expression softening her features. "You're someone important to Sarah, aren't you?" Michael nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. She's the mother of my daughters." "I didn't know. I'm trying to find them." Margaret placed a comforting hand on his arm. "I hope you do find them, dear. Sarah was a strong woman, and those little girls were her life. I'm sure that wherever they are, they're together." Leaving Margaret's house, Michael felt a mix of emotions: hope, anxiety, determination. He was closer than ever to finding Sarah and the girls. Riverview Central Hospital was his next stop. As he drove back to the hotel, planning his trip to Riverview the next morning, Michael couldn't help feeling he was on the verge of a major discovery. Years of separation, of unanswered questions, might finally be coming to an end. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Michael looked at the road ahead, a metaphor for the journey that still lay before him. He was closer than ever to Sarah and the girls, but he knew the greatest challenges were yet to come. How would Sarah react when she saw him after all these years? Would the girls accept him as their father? And what would he find at the hospital? Had Sarah's condition improved, or had it worsened over time? Despite the uncertainties, one thing Michael knew for sure: no matter what he found in Riverview, he was prepared to face it. Prepared to take on his role as a father, prepared to support Sarah in whatever challenge she was facing, prepared to do whatever was necessary to reunite his family. With that firm resolve in his heart, Michael arrived at the hotel. He spent the evening making arrangements for his trip to Riverview, barely able to sleep from anticipation and expectation. Tomorrow, he thought as he finally lay down, could be the day that changed everything. Tomorrow would bring answers, he was certain, but it would also bring new challenges, new emotions to process. Michael fell asleep with thoughts of Sarah, Emma, and Olivia filling his mind, dreaming of a reunion he had waited for so long. As the night wore on, the full moon shone over Millbrook like a beacon of hope. Somewhere, not too far away, 3 hearts beat in unison, unknowingly preparing for a meeting that would change their lives forever. The sun had barely begun to tint the horizon with golden hues when Michael arrived at Riverview Central Hospital. The imposing concrete and glass building loomed before him, its windows reflecting the morning light like thousands of watchful eyes. Michael parked his car in the large lot, his hands trembling slightly as he turned off the engine. For a moment, he remained motionless, his hands still on the steering wheel. His heart pounded furiously against his ribs, a mix of anxiety and hope threatening to overwhelm him. He was so close now. After years of separation, of unanswered questions, of silent regrets, he would finally find Sarah. Taking a deep breath, Michael got out of the car. The cool morning air hit him, carrying the distinctive smell of a hospital, a blend of antiseptic and something indescribable that spoke of pain and healing. He adjusted his jacket and headed for the main entrance, each step echoing with the weight of his expectations. At the information desk, a middle-aged receptionist greeted him with a professional smile. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" Michael hesitated for a moment, the reality of the situation fully hitting him. I'm looking for a patient, Sarah Lawson." The receptionist typed something into her computer, her eyes scanning the screen for a few seconds. "Yes, we have a Sarah Lawson admitted here. Are you a relative?" Michael paused, unsure how to define himself. What was he to Sarah now after all these years? "I'm the father of her children," he finally said, feeling the weight of those words. The receptionist's expression softened. "I see. She's in room 412, 4th floor. The elevator is on your right." Michael thanked her and made his way to the elevator, his heart pounding more fiercely with each step. The ride to the 4th floor seemed to last an eternity, the gentle hum of the elevator doing little to calm his frayed nerves. When the doors opened, Michael found himself in a long, quiet corridor. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, casting a pale glow on the sterile white walls. He walked slowly, his eyes glancing at the numbers on the doors. 408, 410, and finally, 412. Standing before the closed door, Michael felt as if he was standing on the edge of a cliff. On the other side of this door was Sarah, the woman he had loved, lost, and searched for so long. With one last calming breath, he knocked softly. "Come in," came a faint voice from the other side. Michael turned the knob, his heart nearly stopping when the door swung open. The room was small but cozy. A large window let in the early morning sunshine, gently illuminating the space. And there, lying in a hospital bed, was Sarah. Time had left its mark on her, as had illness. Her face, once so full of life and youth, was thinner now, with lines of worry marking her forehead and the corners of her eyes. Her hair, once a rich brown, was now streaked with grey. But her eyes, those green eyes Michael remembered so well, still shone with the same intensity as before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah looked at Michael, her eyes widening in recognition and surprise. Michael, in turn, felt as if he'd been hit by a wave of emotions, joy, sadness, guilt, love, all jumbled together in an overwhelming rush. "Michael!" Sarah's voice was just a whisper, as though she feared speaking louder might break the illusion. "Sarah," Michael replied, his own voice thick with emotion. He took a hesitant step toward the bed. I found you." Sarah shifted slightly, a mix of emotions washing over her face. How did you find me?" Michael moved closer, stopping beside the bed. "I never stopped looking," he said softly. "Ever since you left, I knew something was wrong. I should have fought harder, Sarah. I'm so sorry." Tears began to form in Sarah's eyes. "Oh, Michael," she whispered. "I wanted so badly to tell you, but I couldn't." Michael took Sarah's hand, noticing how frail it felt compared to his memories. "What happened, Sarah? Why did you leave?" Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, they were filled with a determination Michael recognized well. "It's a long story, Michael, and it's not easy to tell." "I have time," Michael said gently, pulling a chair closer to the bed and sitting down. "Please, Sarah, I need to know." Sarah nodded slowly. "It all began right after we got engaged," she began. "I was so happy, Michael, so hopeful for our future, but then..." She paused, swallowing hard. "I started feeling unwell. At first I thought it was just stress, wedding jitters. But the symptoms got worse. I went to the doctor and... Her voice trailed off. Michael squeezed her hand gently, urging her to continue. They discovered I had a congenital heart condition, Sarah went on. Something I'd had since birth, but which only started showing symptoms then. The doctors said it was serious, that I'd need continuous treatment, possibly even a transplant in the future. Michael felt his heart twist. Why didn't you tell me, Sarah? I would have done anything to help. Sarah gave a sad smile. I know, Michael, and that was why I couldn't tell you. You had just taken on more responsibilities in the family business. I didn't want to be a burden, didn't want you to have to choose between your career and taking care of me. Sarah, Michael began, but she raised a hand to silence him. Let me finish, please, she said softly. There was more. Shortly after the diagnosis, I found out I was pregnant. Michael felt the world spin around him. Pregnant, he breathed. Sarah nodded, tears now flowing freely down her face. Twins. The doctors said it would be a high-risk pregnancy, that it could worsen my condition, but I couldn't give them up, Michael. Michael's mind whirled. The girls he had met on the road, Emma and Olivia. He looked at Sarah, his voice trembling when he finally managed to speak. The girls, Emma and Olivia. They're my daughters. The silence that followed seemed to stretch into eternity. Sarah looked into Michael's eyes, a mix of fear, guilt, and love in her gaze. Finally, she nodded slowly. Yes, Michael, she said softly. Emma and Olivia are your daughters. Michael felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. He was a father to two girls he barely knew who had grown up without him. The joy of discovery mingled with a sharp pain for all the moments he had missed. Why, Sarah? He asked, his voice raw. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you run away? Sarah sighed deeply, guilt evident in her eyes. I was scared, Michael, scared of being a burden to you, scared that my condition could harm the girls. And there were pressures. Michael frowned. Pressures? From whom? Sarah hesitated, clearly reluctant to elaborate. Let's just say not everyone was happy with our engagement. There were suggestions that it would be better if I left. Michael's face hardened, a suspicion growing in his mind. My mother, he said, not a question. Sarah neither confirmed nor denied, but her silence was answer enough. So you left, Michael said softly. What happened after that? Sarah closed her eyes again, remembering. It was hard, Michael. So hard. I had little money, no support, and 2 babies to care for. I moved from town to town, taking any job I could find. Waitressing, cleaning, sales, anything to put food on the table and a roof over our heads. Michael listened, his heart heavy, as Sarah described the years of struggle. How she worked double shifts in cheap diners, the girls sleeping in a stroller by her side. How she spent nights in shelters when money was too tight. How she balanced buying medicine for her heart with ensuring the girls had enough to eat. There were moments when I thought about giving up, Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Moments when the weight of it all seemed too much to bear. But then I'd look at Emma and Olivia, see how strong they were, how they smiled even on the hardest days, and I found the strength to go on. Michael felt tears in his own eyes. You're incredible, Sarah, he said softly. So strong, so brave. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that alone. Sarah gave a sad smile. It wasn't your fault, Michael. I made the decision to leave. I thought I was protecting you, protecting the girls, but now... She paused, looking out the window. Now I'm not sure I did the right thing. Michael held Sarah's hand between his. What matters is we're here now. I found you, I found our daughters. We can fix this, Sarah. Together. Sarah looked at him, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. The girls, they don't know about you, Michael. They know they have a father somewhere, but how do we tell them? Michael took a deep breath, the enormity of the situation washing over him. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we'll figure it out, step by step. First, we need to take care of you." "What exactly is your condition now, Sarah?" Sarah explained her current medical situation, the need for a heart transplant, the treatments she was undergoing, the uncertainties of the future. Michael listened attentively, asking questions, promising himself he would do everything in his power to ensure she got the best possible treatment. As the morning wore on, they continued talking, finally breaking years of silence and separation. They spoke of the girls, their personalities, their likes, their hopes and dreams. Michael absorbed every detail hungrily, trying to build a picture of the daughters he barely knew. "They're wonderful, Michael," Sarah said, a genuine smile lighting up her tired face. "Emma is the adventurous one, always ready for something new. Olivia is quieter, but so smart and observant. They remind me of you in so many ways." Michael felt his heart swell with a love he never knew he was capable of feeling. Love for these two daughters he had never truly met, but who already meant the world to him. "Where are they now?" he asked softly. Sarah's smile wavered a bit. "They're staying with a neighbor, an elderly lady who looks after them when I'm in the hospital. They don't know how serious my condition is. I didn't want to scare them." Michael nodded, understanding. "What do you want to do now, Sarah? How do you want to handle my presence in their lives?" Sarah was silent for a moment, thinking. "I think we need to take it slow," she finally said. "They've already been through so many changes, so many hardships. I don't want to overwhelm them all at once." "Agreed," Michael said. "Maybe I can start by visiting you, getting to know them better before we reveal everything." Sarah nodded slowly. "That could work, but Michael—" She paused, looking into his eyes. "Are you sure? This will change your life completely. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Michael didn't hesitate. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Sarah. You're my family. I'll do whatever it takes to be together, to fix the past." Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes. "Oh, Michael," she whispered. "I've missed you so much." Michael leaned in, kissing Sarah's forehead gently. "I've missed you too, Sarah, more than you can imagine." They spent the rest of the morning planning their next steps. Michael insisted on transferring Sarah to a better hospital, one with a top-notch cardiac unit. They discussed how to talk to the girls, how to gradually introduce Michael into their lives. When the nurse came in to check on Sarah, Michael realized hours had passed. He stood up reluctantly, knowing he needed to go, but feeling as if a piece of himself was staying behind. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised. "And I'll bring news about the transfer to the new hospital." Sarah smiled, tired but happy. "Thank you, Michael, for everything." As he walked back to his car, Michael felt as if he were floating. His world had been turned upside down in the last few hours, but for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. He was a father. The realization hit him again, making him pause in the hospital parking lot. Michael looked back at the imposing building, knowing that inside was not only the woman he had never stopped loving, but also the beginning of a new journey, a journey as a dad. Sitting in his car, Michael let the emotions he'd held back during his conversation with Sarah finally wash over him. Tears rolled down his cheeks, tears of joy at discovering his daughters, tears of sorrow for the lost years, tears of guilt for not being there when Sarah needed him most, and tears of determination to make it right from now on. He picked up his phone, his fingers hovering over the keypad. There were so many things to do, so many changes to set in motion. Transferring Sarah to a better hospital, arranging to meet the girls, deciding how to tell them the truth. And then there was his mother, Elizabeth. The role she had played in Sarah's departure was still an open wound that would need addressing. But for now, Michael decided that could wait. Today was a day to absorb, to process, to prepare for the new life that awaited him. He started the car and left the parking lot, his heart lighter than it had been in years. As he drove back to the city, Michael made a silent promise to Sarah, Emma, Olivia, and himself. He would be the father his daughters deserved, the partner Sarah needed. No matter the challenges ahead, Sarah's illness, the girl's adjustment, whatever obstacles his own family might create, he would face it all with love, patience, and determination. The afternoon sun shone on the horizon, a symbol of hope for the future. Michael smiled, feeling genuinely at peace for the first time in years. The path ahead would be difficult, he knew, but it would also be filled with love, discovery, and second chances. He was a father, and he was ready to embrace every moment of that new journey. Michael spent the night in a small hotel near the hospital, his sleep restless and full of confused dreams about family, secrets, and reconciliations. When the sun rose, he was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold without him noticing. His heart and mind were in turmoil. The joy of finding Sarah and discovering his daughters was mixed with profound anxiety about what to do next. Two paths lay before him, both fraught with complications and potential consequences. On one hand, there was the burning urge to confront his mother, Elizabeth. Anger bubbled in his chest at the thought of the role she might have played in Sarah's departure. Years of lies, missed opportunities with his daughters, all because of his mother's interference. Michael wanted answers, wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. On the other hand, there were Emma and Olivia, his daughters, two girls who didn't know him, who had grown up without a father, facing struggles that children should never endure. They needed stability and security. Confronting Elizabeth now could create a whirlwind of family drama that might negatively affect the girls. Michael took a deep breath, setting the cup of cold coffee on the nightstand. Deep down, he knew his daughters had to be his priority. Elizabeth would have to wait. First, he needed to establish a connection with his daughters, ensure Sarah got the proper treatment, and create a stable environment for his newly discovered family. With that decision made, Michael prepared to return to the hospital. He had a lot to discuss with Sarah. When he arrived at Sarah's room, he found her in better spirits than the day before. Some color had returned to her cheeks, and there was a sparkle of hope in her eyes that warmed Michael's heart. "Good morning," he said softly, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "How are you feeling today?" Sarah smiled, though Michael could still see the fatigue beneath it. "Better, especially now that you're here." They talked for a few minutes about how her night had been, about the results of some tests run that morning. Then, inevitably, the conversation turned to the topic that loomed over them: the girls. "Michael," Sarah began, her voice suddenly serious, "about the girls, please don't tell them about my illness yet. They've been through so much already, and I don't want them to worry any more than they already do." Michael nodded slowly. He understood Sarah's desire to protect the girls, though part of him felt they deserved to know the truth. "All right, Sarah, we'll follow your lead on that. But how do you want to handle my presence in their lives?" Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe we can start slowly. You could be introduced as an old friend of mine, someone who's helping us. That would give the girls time to get used to you before we reveal the full truth." Michael agreed. It was a sensible approach, one that would allow Emma and Olivia to know him without the immediate pressure of accepting him as their father. "And how should I be involved in their daily lives? How do we make this transition?" "We could start with short visits," Sarah suggested. "Maybe you could come over for dinner a few times a week, or take the girls to the park. Simple activities that let you get to know each other naturally." As they discussed the details of this plan, Sarah began sharing more about each twin's personality and needs. "Emma is our adventurer," she said with a fond smile. "She loves to explore, always eager to learn new things. She has a passion for adventure books and dreams of traveling the world someday." Michael soaked up every word, eager to know more about his daughters. "And Olivia?" "Olivia is our artist," Sarah continued. "She's quieter, more introspective. She loves to draw and paint. She has an incredible talent for capturing emotions in her sketches. She's also very protective of her sister, always looking out for Emma whenever she lands in trouble." Michael's heart filled with love and pride as he listened to stories about his daughters. He couldn't wait to meet them properly, to see these traits for himself. The conversation turned to more practical matters. There was much to consider. Legal issues regarding the girl's custody, arrangements for Sarah's ongoing treatment, decisions about where they would all live. "I promise, Sarah," Michael said, holding her hand. "I'll do everything in my power to take care of you and the girls. I'll make sure you get the best treatment possible, and I'll do whatever is necessary to give the girls the stability and support they deserve." Sarah squeezed his hand, tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Michael. I know it won't be easy, but knowing you're here, that means everything." They spent the next few hours crafting a detailed plan. Michael would start looking for a house near the hospital where Sarah would be transferred, a place where the girls could feel at home. He would arrange for private tutors to ensure the girls' education wouldn't be disrupted during the transition. Sarah emphasized the importance of maintaining some familiar routines for the girls. "They're used to reading a story together every night before bed," she said. "And on Sundays, we always make pancakes for breakfast. Small things like that. They help create a sense of normalcy." Michael mentally noted every detail, determined to get everything right. He knew he would have to make significant changes in his own life, cut back on work hours, reorganize his priorities. But looking at Sarah, thinking about the two girls he had yet to fully know, he knew every sacrifice would be worth it. As the day wore on, Michael and Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the lost time. "So many birthdays, so many firsts I missed," Michael said softly, the pain evident in his voice. Sarah gently touched his cheek. "We can't change the past, Michael, but we have the future. And I know you'll make every moment count." Despite the medical challenges Sarah faced, there was a sense of hope in the air. They had a second chance, a chance to be the family they should have been from the start. When night fell and Michael prepared to leave, he leaned down and kissed Sarah softly. "Tomorrow," he promised, "we'll start our new life together." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of love and hope. "Together," she repeated. Michael left the hospital with a full heart and a focused mind. There was much work to be done, many challenges to face, but for the first time in years, he felt truly alive, truly complete. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. From now on, every decision he made, every step he took would be with his family in mind. Emma, Olivia, and Sarah were his world now, and he would do whatever it took to be the father and partner they deserved. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet street where Emma and Olivia lived with Mrs. Marta, the elderly neighbor who cared for them while Sarah was in the hospital. Michael parked his car a short distance from the house, his heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. This would be his second visit to the girls since discovering they were his daughters, and he was determined to make progress in building a relationship with them. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, Michael left the car and walked up to the front door. He carried a bag filled with adventure books for Emma and a new paint set for Olivia, presents carefully chosen based on what Sarah had told him about the girls' interests. Before he could knock, the door opened, revealing Mrs. Marta's kind, wrinkled face. "Ah, Mr. Thornton," she said with a warm smile. "The girls are in the backyard. Please, come in." Michael followed Mrs. Marta through the modest house, noting the colorful drawings taped to the walls, undoubtedly Olivia's work, and books stacked on nearly every flat surface, likely belonging to Emma. Each detail made him want to learn more about his daughters, aching for the years he had missed. In the backyard, Emma was seated on a makeshift swing hanging from a large tree, a book open in her lap. Olivia was crouched by a flower bed, sketching in a pad of paper. Both looked up when Michael appeared, their faces a mix of curiosity and caution. "Hello, girls," Michael said gently, offering a smile he hoped was reassuring. "Remember me? I'm Michael, your mum's friend." Emma closed her book, her green eyes, so like Sarah's, studying Michael intently. Yes, we remember, she said. You visited last week. Olivia stood slowly, her sketchpad pressed against her chest like a shield. How's our mum? She asked, her voice low but steady. Michael's heart clenched. It was clear how much the girls missed Sarah. She's feeling a little better, he said, choosing his words carefully. She asked me to come check on you. I brought a few gifts. The girls' eyes lit up with interest when Michael produced the books and paint set from the bag. Emma snatched up the books eagerly, flipping through the pages with excitement, while Olivia inspected the paint set with a small smile. Thank you, they said in unison, and Michael felt a surge of affection for his daughters. In the minutes that followed, Michael worked to engage the girls in conversation. He asked about their interests, about school, about their daily routines. Slowly, they began to open up. Emma spoke enthusiastically about the book she was reading, an adventure story about explorers in a rainforest. Someday I'm going to travel to places like that, she declared, her eyes shining with determination. Olivia, more reserved, showed Michael some of her drawings. He was impressed by the girl's talent, the way she captured emotions with simple lines. As the afternoon wore on, Michael learned more about the girls' daily routine. They woke up early to help Mrs. Marta with breakfast, then headed to the local school. After classes, they did their homework together at the kitchen table, often helping each other. Evenings were spent reading, drawing, or watching old movies on the small TV in the living room. It also became clear to Michael the difficulties the girls faced. Their school uniforms were worn and a bit too small. Their school supplies were old and used, and there was an underlying tension in their eyes, a worry no child their age should carry. Michael fought the urge to blurt out the truth then and there, that he was their father and would make everything right. But he remembered his promise to Sarah, the importance of going slowly. So instead, he did what he could to offer comfort and support. You know, he said gently, you can always count on me for anything. If you need help with your homework, or you want to visit your mom in the hospital, or anything else, just let me know. The girls exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Emma spoke. Why are you helping us so much, Mr. Michael? You hardly know us. Michael felt his heart clench. Well, he began, choosing his words carefully, your mum is very special to me, and you two are important to her, so you're important to me as well. Olivia studied him with keen eyes. Do you like our mom? She asked directly. Michael couldn't help but smile. Yes, he admitted, I like her very much. The following weeks fell into a similar pattern. Michael visited the girls regularly, always bringing small gifts or offering help with homework. Gradually, Emma and Olivia began to trust him, to open up more. One day, about a month after his first visit, Michael arrived to find Emma crying on the front porch. Olivia stood beside her, an arm protectively draped over her sister's shoulders. What happened? Michael asked, kneeling in front of them. Through sobs, Emma explained that some boys at school had teased her for her old clothes and second-hand books. Michael's heart broke at his daughter's distress. Without thinking, he pulled Emma into a hug. It's okay, sweetheart, he murmured, stroking her hair. Daddy's here. Everything will be okay. The moment the words left his mouth, Michael realized his mistake. Emma pulled back abruptly, her eyes wide with shock. Olivia tensed beside her, her expression a mix of confusion and suspicion. What did you say? Emma whispered. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, knowing there was no going back now. When he opened them, both girls were staring at him, waiting for an explanation. I'm your father, he said quietly. Your mom and I. We separated before you were born. I didn't know about you until recently. I'm so sorry I wasn't here before. The silence that followed was deafening. The girls looked at Michael, then at each other, their expressions shifting through shock, confusion, anger, hope. It was Olivia who spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. Why didn't Mom ever tell us about you? Michael sighed. It's complicated, sweetheart. Your mom thought she was protecting us, all of us, but now that I've found you, I want to be part of your lives. If you'll let me. Emma, who had been silent until then, suddenly threw herself into Michael's arms, sobbing. Olivia hesitated for a moment before joining the embrace. Michael held them, tears filling his own eyes. "Shh, it's okay," he murmured, kissing the tops of their heads. "I'm here now, I'm not going anywhere." After the girls calmed down a bit, Michael suggested they go visit Sarah at the hospital. They quickly agreed, eager to see their mother, and, Michael suspected, to confirm his story. The drive to the hospital was quiet, the girls lost in their own thoughts. Michael could almost see the wheels turning in their minds as they processed this new reality. When they entered Sarah's room, she looked at them in surprise. "Michael? Girls? What's going on?" Michael stepped forward. "Sarah, I told them. It wasn't planned, but it happened. They know I'm their father." Sarah gasped, tears filling her eyes. She opened her arms, and the girls ran to her, burying their faces in her chest. "Oh, my darlings," Sarah whispered, stroking their hair. "I'm so sorry I never told you before. I was just trying to protect you." In the minutes that followed, Sarah and Michael explained the situation as best they could. They talked about their past relationship, about the circumstances leading to their separation, about how Michael had only recently discovered the truth. The girls listened in silence, occasionally asking questions. It was clear they were struggling to process everything, their emotions swinging between joy at finding their father and confusion at why they'd been kept apart for so long. Inevitably, the conversation turned to Sarah's health. The girls already knew she was sick, but they hadn't understood the seriousness of it. "Mom," Emma said, her voice trembling, "you'll get better, right?" Sarah exchanged a glance with Michael before answering. "I'm doing my best, sweetheart. The doctors are taking really good care of me, but it might take a while for me to get completely better." Olivia, ever observant, noticed the shared look. "Is there something you're not telling us?" Michael knelt beside the bed, meeting the girls at eye level. "Your mum's condition is serious," he said gently. "She needs a new heart. We're on the waiting list, and the doctors are doing everything they can, but it's going to be a tough journey." The girls absorbed the news in silence, tears rolling down their cheeks. Sarah pulled them close, hugging them tightly. "But don't worry," Michael added, placing a hand on each girl's shoulder. "We're all together now. I'll take care of you and your mum. We'll face this as a family." The hours that followed were spent together in the hospital room. The girls took turns lying in bed next to Sarah, while Michael sat in the chair beside them, holding Sarah's hand. They talked, laughed, cried, and slowly began feeling like a family. When it was time for Michael to take the girls back to Mrs. Marta's house, none of them wanted the moment to end. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Emma asked, pleading with her eyes. "Of course, sweetheart," Michael promised. "We can come every day if you like." As they got ready to leave, Olivia turned to Michael. Do you want us to call you Dad?" Michael felt his heart swell with emotion. "Only if you want to, sweetheart. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. I think I'd like to call you Dad." "Eventually?" "Me too," Emma added shyly. Michael smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "I'd love that," he said softly. As they left the hospital, Michael knew the road ahead would be difficult. There was a lot to sort out, a lot to heal. But looking at his daughters walking beside him, feeling the weight of their small hands in his, he knew they would face it all together, as a family. As Michael guided the car back to Mrs. Marta's house, a thoughtful silence filled the air. Emma and Olivia sat in the back seat, their minds clearly working through the day's events. Michael watched them in the rearview mirror, his heart overflowing with love and concern. "Girls," he said gently, breaking the silence, "I know today was full of surprises and emotions. If you ever want to talk about anything, or if you have questions, I'm here for you." Emma spoke first, her voice small and hesitant. Michael, Are you really staying? You're not going to leave us again, are you? The question hit Michael like an arrow to the heart. Emma, sweetheart, he answered, his voice thick with emotion. I promise you both I'm here to stay. I know I've missed a lot of time, but I'll do whatever I can to make it up. You and your mum are my priority now. Olivia, who had been silent until then, spoke up. And if Mum doesn't get better, what happens to us? Michael swallowed hard, fighting back tears. Olivia, no matter what happens, the three of us will stay together. I'll take care of you no matter what. And we'll do everything we can to help Mom get better. When they arrived at Mrs. Marta's house, Michael parked and turned to face his daughters. I love you both more than I can express, he said softly. I know it will take time for us to really know each other, to adjust to this new situation, but I'm here for whatever you need. To his surprise, both girls leaned forward and hugged him. Michael wrapped them in his arms, finally letting the tears he'd been holding back flow. When they pulled apart, there was a new spark in the girls' eyes, a mix of hope and determination. See you tomorrow, Dad, Emma said timidly. See you tomorrow, Olivia echoed, a small smile on her lips. As he watched them walk inside, Michael felt a wave of determination course through him. The road ahead would be challenging, full of uncertainties, but now they would face it together, as a family. And that, he knew, would make all the difference. The Thornton mansion was quiet that Sunday afternoon. Michael walked through its familiar corridors, his steps echoing on the marble floors. He had spent the morning with Emma and Olivia at the hospital, visiting Sarah, and now, with the girls under Mrs. Marta's care, he found himself back in the home of his childhood. His heart was heavy with unanswered questions and suspicions that could no longer be ignored. Sarah's words about the pressures that had forced her to leave echoed in his mind, and now, knowing he was a father and everything he had lost, Michael felt an urgent need to discover the whole truth. His steps led him to Elizabeth's study, a room that had always seemed off-limits in his youth. The door was ajar, and Michael hesitated before walking in. The scent of old leather and paper greeted him, conjuring memories of tense conversations and unmet expectations. Michael began to search the shelves and drawers, not quite sure what he was looking for, but certain he would find something. Then he noticed a small discrepancy in the wooden panel behind his mother's desk. Curious, he pressed it, and to his surprise the panel shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. Heart racing, Michael removed an ornate wooden box from the hiding spot. He opened it carefully, and his world seemed to stop. Inside the box were dozens of envelopes, all addressed to him in Sarah's familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, Michael picked up the first letter and began to read. My dear Michael, it's been 3 months since I left the mansion, and my heart aches more each day I spend away from you. I know my leaving must have confused and hurt you, but I need you to know I had no choice. Michael kept reading, tears streaming down his face as he absorbed Sarah's words of love, longing, and despair. Letter after letter, he uncovered the truth that had been hidden from him for so long. Sarah wrote about her pregnancy, her fear of burdening Michael with her medical condition, the veiled threats from Elizabeth. She begged for a chance to explain, to make things work. The girls are so beautiful. Michael, Emma has your eyes, and Olivia your smile. They ask about you, and my heart breaks every time I have to make up a story. Please, if you still love me, if you still care, write back. We need you. Rage built inside Michael with every word he read. Years of separation, of suffering, all because of his mother's manipulations. He stood abruptly, the letters clenched in his fist, and left the study in search of Elizabeth. He found her in the living room, calmly reading a book. Mother, he said, his voice trembling with barely restrained anger. What is this? Elizabeth looked up, her eyes widening when she saw the letters in Michael's hand. For a moment, she seemed to lose her composure, but quickly regained it. Michael, dear, what are you talking about? Don't you dare lie to me, Michael exploded, tossing the letters onto the coffee table. You hid these from me for years. You kept Sarah and my daughters away from me." Elizabeth rose slowly, her face a mask of forced calm. "Michael, you need to understand. I was protecting you." "Protecting?" Michael let out a bitter laugh. "From what?" "From love. From the chance to be a father. To have a family. From that opportunistic girl," Elizabeth fired back, her facade finally cracking. "She was a housekeeper, Michael. She wasn't worthy of you, of our family." Michael felt as if he'd been slapped. "Worthy? Sarah is the most worthy person I've ever known. She loved me for who I was, not for my money or status." "She was pregnant, Michael," Elizabeth shouted. "She would have ruined your future, tied you down to a mediocre life." "The only future ruined was the one you created," Michael retorted. "You stole years of my life, of my daughters' lives. How could you do this?" The argument continued, voices rising, years of resentment and secrets finally coming to light. That was when a small sound at the door caught both their attention. Emma and Olivia stood there, eyes wide and brimming with tears. Michael felt his heart sink. He hadn't realized the girls had arrived. "What's happening?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you yelling?" Olivia, always the more perceptive, looked at the scattered letters, then at Elizabeth. You kept us from our dad." The silence that followed was deafening. Elizabeth seemed to age years in seconds, the weight of her actions finally visible on her face. Michael knelt, opening his arms to his daughters. "Come here, sweethearts," he said softly. The girls rushed to him, burying their faces in his chest. "I'm sorry you had to hear this," Michael whispered, stroking their hair, "but I think it's time the whole truth came out." In the following minutes, Michael did his best to explain the situation to Emma and Olivia. He told them about the love he had shared with Sarah, about how Elizabeth had interfered, about the letters that had been hidden. The girls listened in silence, occasionally asking questions, their young minds struggling to grasp this new reality. Elizabeth remained silent throughout the explanation, her face a portrait of remorse and shame. When Michael finished, she took a hesitant step toward her granddaughters. "Emma, Olivia," she began, her voice trembling, "what I did was unforgivable. I thought I was protecting our family, but now I see I only caused pain. I am sorry." The girls looked at their grandmother, a woman they barely knew, their expressions a mix of confusion, hurt, and the flicker of compassion only children can muster. "Grandma," Olivia said slowly, testing the word, "why did you dislike our mom?" The simple, direct question seemed to pierce the last of Elizabeth's defenses. She sat down heavily, tears finally escaping her eyes. "Oh, my dear," she whispered, "it wasn't that I disliked her. I was afraid of losing my son, afraid of our family changing. I was foolish and selfish, and now I see how much harm I caused." Michael watched the scene, his heart torn between lingering anger and a pang of compassion for the broken woman before him. He knew the path to forgiveness would be long and hard, but seeing his daughters, so young, already facing such harsh truths, he felt a renewed determination to heal his fractured family. "Girls," he said softly, "what happened in the past was wrong, but now we have a chance to make things right, to be a family. What do you think?" Emma and Olivia exchanged looks, a silent communication passing between them in the way only twins can. Finally, Emma spoke up. "We can try. But first we want to see Mom. She needs to know about the letters." Michael nodded, proud of his daughter's maturity. "Of course, we'll go to the hospital right now." As they prepared to leave, Elizabeth rose unsteadily. May I come too? I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to apologize to Sarah in person." Michael hesitated, but upon seeing the hopeful look on his daughters' faces, he reluctantly agreed. "All right, but the girls and Sarah are my priority. If at any point they feel uncomfortable, you'll have to leave." Elizabeth nodded, grateful for the chance. The drive to the hospital was tense, each person in the car lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived at Sarah's room, Michael went in first. gently preparing her for the revelations to come. Sarah listened in shock as Michael explained about the hidden letters and Elizabeth's confession. When the girls entered, running to hug their mother, tears were streaming freely down Sarah's face. "My darlings," she whispered, holding her daughters tight. "I'm so sorry for all of this. I wanted you to know your dad, to have the family you deserved." Elizabeth entered last hour looking smaller and more fragile than Michael had ever seen her. She approached the bed hesitantly. "Sarah," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know no excuse can make up for what I did, but I need you to know how much I regret it. I was blinded by pride and fear, and I caused so much suffering." Sarah looked at the woman who had caused her so much pain. For a moment, the room was utterly silent, tension thick in the air. Then, to everyone's surprise, Sarah reached out her hand to Elizabeth. "What you did was terrible," Sarah said softly, "but holding on to resentment will only cause more pain. For the girl's sake, for Michael's sake, I'm willing to try to forgive. It won't be easy, and it will take time. But we can try." Tears flowed freely down Elizabeth's cheeks as she clasped Sarah's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll do everything I can to make amends." In the days that followed, the Thornton family faced the difficult task of processing all the revelations and beginning the path to healing. Sarah started a new and promising treatment for her heart condition, with Michael and the girls at her side every step of the way. Elizabeth, determined to atone, offered a full explanation of her past actions and displayed a genuine remorse that surprised everyone. She devoted herself to getting to know her granddaughters, listening carefully to their stories and interests. One afternoon, while Sarah rested, Michael decided to read some of the letters to the girls. It was a moving moment. Sarah's words of love and longing bridging the gap between past and present. "My dear Michael," he read, his voice thick with emotion. "Today, Emma took her first steps. She wobbled across the room, laughing the whole time, while Olivia cheered her on from the couch. I wished so much that you were here to see it." The girls listened, captivated, learning about their own early childhood and the love their mother had for their father, even while they were apart. These reading sessions became a ritual, a way for the family to reconnect and heal old wounds. Then, nearly 2 weeks into the new treatment, came the news everyone had been waiting for. Sarah was showing positive signs of improvement. Her heart was stronger, her energy increasing day by day. The doctor entered the room, a cautious smile on his face. "Miss Lawson," he said, "the results of your latest tests are very promising. If we continue down this path, we might even avoid the need for a transplant." The news was met with a mixture of joy and caution. Sarah squeezed Michael's hand, tears of relief in her eyes. Emma and Olivia hugged their mother, their laughter filling the room with a joy that had been absent for too long. Elizabeth, who was present for the consultation, let out a trembling sigh. "Thank God," she murmured, and for the first time, Michael felt a spark of gratitude that his mother was there. As the family celebrated the good news, Michael looked around the room. Sarah, growing stronger each day. His daughters, finally learning the full truth of their story. His mother, trying to mend the past. And himself, finally complete with the family he had always yearned for. The road ahead was still long, undoubtedly full of challenges, but in that moment, surrounded by the love of his reunited family, Michael felt a surge of hope so powerful it nearly took his breath away. "We're together now," he said softly, his voice full of emotion. "And together, we can overcome anything." Sarah smiled at him, squeezing his hand. Emma and Olivia nestled closer to their parents. Even Elizabeth, standing a little to the side, seemed part of this new beginning. The Thornton family had faced lies, separation and pain. But now, united by truth and love, they were ready to write a new chapter, together. As night fell, a feeling of peace and hope settled over the hospital room. Michael gazed out the window, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. He reflected on the emotional roller coaster of the past few days, the shocking revelations, the painful confrontations, and now this spark of hope with Sarah's improvement. Emma and Olivia had fallen asleep, curled up on either side of Sarah in the hospital bed. Elizabeth had left not long ago, promising to return in the morning, her eyes still glistening with tears of remorse and gratitude. Michael turned to Sarah, who was watching him with a tired but contented smile. He moved closer to the bed, careful not to disturb the sleeping girls. "How are you feeling?" he asked, brushing his hand gently over her cheek. "Tired," she admitted, "but hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we have a future." Michael nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "We have a lot to rebuild," he said, "but I'm so grateful we have this chance." Sarah reached out, intertwining her fingers with Michael's. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up, for finding us, for loving our daughters so readily." "They're part of us," Michael answered, his gaze filled with love as he looked at the sleeping girls. "How could I not love them?" For a moment, they stayed silent, soaking in the peace of that moment. The lies had been exposed, the truths revealed. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time it seemed possible. "Tomorrow," Michael finally said, "we start planning our future, all of us together." Sarah smiled, her eyes closing in exhaustion. "Tomorrow," she agreed softly. Michael leaned down, kissing Sarah gently on the forehead, then Emma and Olivia. Then he settled into the armchair beside the bed, preparing himself for another night of watchful waiting. As sleep overtook him, Michael felt a sense of wholeness he hadn't experienced in years. His family was together, wounds were beginning to heal, and the future, while uncertain, glowed with promise. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for the first time in ages, Michael looked forward to facing them, because now he wasn't alone. He had his family, and together they could overcome anything. The following weeks brought a series of positive changes for the Thornton family. Sarah continued to respond well to her treatment, surpassing the doctor's expectations. Her face grew more vibrant by the day, and her energy gradually returned. Michael and the twins visited her daily, filling the hospital room with laughter and plans for the future instead of fear and uncertainty. One bright autumn morning, Michael entered his lawyer's office, Sarah beside him in a wheelchair. The twins waited in the hall, excited yet confident. An hour of paperwork and signatures later, it was done. Michael was officially the legal guardian of Emma and Olivia, with Sarah sharing custody. As they left the office, Michael knelt in front of the girls. "Well, it's official," he said with a grin. "You're stuck with me now." Emma giggled, throwing her arms around her father's neck. "Like we'd want to be anywhere else." Olivia, always more reserved, simply smiled and squeezed Michael's hand, but her eyes shone with a happiness beyond words. Sarah watched the scene with tears in her eyes. "Our girls," she whispered, extending her hand to Michael. "Our family." With custody settled and Sarah's health improving, the family turned their attention to preparing a home for her eventual return. Michael purchased a spacious single-story house in the suburbs with a large yard that immediately enchanted the twins. Weekends turned into sessions of decorating and adapting the house. Emma and Olivia took charge of decorating their new bedrooms with enthusiasm, while Michael oversaw the installation of ramps and support bars to accommodate Sarah's mobility needs. Elizabeth, determined to redeem herself, threw herself into the preparations. She spent hours researching the best home medical equipment, hired a top-tier nursing staff to assist Sarah, and even began learning to cook healthy meals under the guidance of a personal chef. "I never thought I'd see you in the kitchen, Mother," Michael remarked one day, watching Elizabeth stir a pot of soup. She offered a shy smile. "It's never too late to learn new skills, dear, especially when it's for the good of the family." As winter approached, anticipation and anxiety grew. Finally, on a cold December morning, the news they had all been waiting for arrived. Sarah would be discharged to continue her treatment at home. The day of her release was a whirlwind of emotions. There was joy, of course, but also an undercurrent of nerves. Sarah still needed constant care, and though her heart was stronger, it was not fully healed. When the car pulled up in front of the new house, Sarah was momentarily speechless. The facade was adorned with Christmas lights and a big banner that read, "Welcome home, Mom." Emma and Olivia rushed to help their mother out of the car, each carefully supporting one of her arms. Michael followed close behind, carrying bags, while Elizabeth hovered nearby, overseeing everything with watchful eyes. "It's all perfect," Sarah whispered, looking around the cozy living room decorated with family photos and the girls' drawings. The days that followed were all about adjustment and discovery. The family established new routines, focused on Sarah's care and creating a loving, stable environment for the twins. Evenings were often spent in the living room, all of them snuggled together as Michael read aloud the old letters from Sarah, filling in the blank spaces of their once separated lives. As Christmas approached, anticipation in the Thornton household was palpable. It would be the first Christmas they spent together as a complete family, and everyone was determined to make it special. On Christmas Eve, the house was filled with delicious aromas and the sound of laughter. Elizabeth had exceeded all expectations, preparing a feast that rivaled anything the professional chefs at the Thornton mansion had ever produced. Sitting around the dinner table, the family paused to savor the moment. Michael raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "To a love that overcomes every obstacle, to the truth that finally came to light, and to the future we will build together." "To family," everyone echoed, their glasses clinking softly. After dinner, they gathered around the Christmas tree to exchange gifts. The twins were delighted with the new books and art supplies they received. Sarah was given a beautiful photo album filled with pictures of the girls growing up, an album Elizabeth had secretly compiled. But the most emotional moment came when Michael knelt in front of Sarah, holding a small velvet box. "Sarah," he said softly, "10 years ago I gave you this ring as a promise of eternal love. Today I want to renew that promise. Will you do me the honor of marrying me again?" Sarah, tears in her eyes, extended her trembling hand. "Yes," she whispered, "1,000 times, yes." Michael slipped the ring, the same one Emma had worn for so long, onto Sarah's finger. The twins applauded excitedly, while Elizabeth discreetly wiped away a tear. As the night wore on and the girls finally fell asleep, exhausted yet happy, Michael and Sarah found themselves alone on the back porch, watching the snow fall gently. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here?" Sarah asked, nestling closer to Michael. He kissed the top of her head. "Honestly, no, but I'm infinitely grateful that we are." 1 year later, the garden of the new Thornton home was in full bloom, adorned with ribbons and flowers for a special occasion. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, occupied by smiling friends and family. At the center of it all, beneath a rose-covered arch, stood Michael and Sarah. She was radiant in a simple yet elegant dress, her face glowing with health and happiness. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his eyes never leaving his bride. Emma and Olivia, now 11, stood beside their parents, wearing identical lavender dresses. Their faces shone with joy as they watched their parents renew their vows. "Sarah," Michael said, his voice overflowing with emotion, 10 years ago I gave you this ring as a symbol of my love. Today, it represents not only our love, but our journey, the hardships we overcame, the family we built, and the future we face together. I love you more today than I ever thought possible, and I promise to keep loving you every day for the rest of our lives." Sarah, tears in her eyes, replied, "Michael, this ring is more than a symbol of love. It's proof that true love endures, even in the hardest circumstances. It's a testament to the family we created and the life we've built together. I love you, and I promise to keep choosing you, our family and our love every day." As they exchanged rings, Emma and Olivia stepped forward, each holding a wedding band. The moment was a powerful symbol of the unity of their family, now complete and healed. Elizabeth, seated in the front row, watched with a mix of joy and regret. The past year had been one of growth and redemption for her. Although the past couldn't be changed, she was determined to be the best grandmother and mother she could be from then on. When the officiant finally declared Michael and Sarah husband and wife again, the garden burst into applause and cheers. The twins ran to embrace their parents, forming a group hug that perfectly symbolized the journey they had all taken. Later, during the reception, Michael found a moment to be alone with his family. He looked at Sarah, healthier and happier than he had ever seen her, at his daughters, flourishing under the love and care of both parents, and at his mother, genuinely happy to be part of this new chapter. "You know," he said, touching the ring on Sarah's finger, "this little circle of metal took us on an incredible journey. It tore us apart, brought us back together, and now it symbolizes our future." Sarah smiled, intertwining her fingers with Michael's. A future filled with love, hope, and family. Emma and Olivia, hugging their parents, grinned. "And adventures," Emma added enthusiastically. "And art," Olivia said softly. Elizabeth, watching from a step away, felt her heart swell with gratitude. "And second chances," she murmured to herself. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the celebration, the Thornton family stood united, ready to face the future with love, hope, and the certainty that together they could overcome any challenge life might bring. The ring on their intertwined fingers gleamed in the twilight, a constant reminder of the incredible journey that had brought them to this point, and the promise of many happy chapters still to come. As the night wore on and guests began to take their leave, the Thornton family remained together in the lantern-lit garden. The air was filled with soft laughter and whispered conversations, the atmosphere steeped in love and contentment. Michael watched his family, his heart brimming with gratitude. Sarah, his newly renewed wife, chatted animatedly with Elizabeth, the two women finally finding common ground in their shared love for the twins. Emma and Olivia, exhausted but happy, sat on the grass in their matching bridesmaid dresses, sharing dreams and plans for the future. In that moment, Michael allowed himself to reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them here. The pain of the past, the challenges overcome, the joys discovered, it had all shaped them, strengthened them, and brought them closer in a way he never could have imagined. The ring on Sarah's finger glinted softly in the lantern light, a silent reminder of their history. It was no longer a symbol of separation and loss, but one of reunion and hope. It was the start of their story, the middle of their journey, and now the emblem of their future together. As the last light of day vanished on the horizon, Michael gathered his family for one final embrace. In that embrace were unspoken promises of unconditional love, unwavering support, and a future filled with possibilities. The night was coming to an end, but for the Thornton family it was only the beginning of a new life, new adventures, and a love that, having survived separation and time, could only grow stronger. With full hearts and smiles on their faces, they walked back into the house together, ready to face whatever the future held, united as a family.